trailblazers and groundbreakers.
I've thought about us for a long, long time.
You know the songs.
Don't make me over.
Now hear the stories behind them.
I said, wait a minute, that's my song.
Tonight, musical innovators share their career highs
in their childish way.
When I grow up, I'm going to be an internationally known jazz singer.
And their personal lows.
Well, it sets my heart free.
And I also knew that if I didn't talk about it, I wasn't going to make it.
How they made music.
I never set out to write a hit record.
That has touched the masses.
We'll find a way of forgiving.
Hi, everyone. I'm John Seigenthaler, and we hope you're enjoying the Thanksgiving holiday. Tonight, a special edition of our program. Our regular viewers know that we often include an arts and culture segment in the broadcast. This evening, we're going to look back at some of our most interesting interviews with some of the most talented musical artists in the world. We begin with Dionne Warwick, one of a kind. Her songs are timeless. Her music defined a generation. With songwriters Burt Bacharach and Hal David, she created hits that sold millions. I asked her what life is like now.
I'm happy, still working, still running around this world, putting the butts in the seats, and singing the songs that they love, which I'm thrilled and grateful for.
What was the first Burt Bacharach song and Hal David song?
Don't Make Me Over.
Don't Make Me Over.
Right.
I mean, that's...
As I told them not to ever try to do.
Did they try?
Yeah.
They did?
You know, they broke a promise.
Tell me.
I was on, doing demonstration records as well as background work of their music. And there was a song, a demo that I did called Make It Easy on Yourself. And I fell in love with the song. And they kept badgering me, oh, you have to record, you got to record, you got to record. I said, okay, fine, only if. That's my first record. And I had the radio on, and all of a sudden I heard this gravelly voice singing Make It Easy on Yourself was Jerry Butler. I said, wait a minute, that's my song. And they had promised that that was going to be my song, and I had to have a couple of words with them. I was not a happy camper when I finally met with them, and let them know the last thing I want you to ever think you can try to do is to make me over. And Hal David, being the brilliant lyricist that he is and was, sat down, put pen to paper, and came up with Don't Make Me Over.
Don't make me over. I wouldn't change one thing about you.
Did you ever expect to have the success that you eventually did
I don't
have?
think any of us did. You know, BDW, we were called, known as the triangle marriage that worked in the industry, because everything was so completely different than anything that was being done in that part of the 60s. We kind of carved our own little niche out in the music world where nobody was doing anything like we were doing.
Do you know the way to San Jose? Going back to find some peace of mind in San Jose.
Your name, though, is interesting to me because it wasn't Warwick, right? It was
Warwick. It is still Warwick.
It is still Warwick, even though we call you Warwick.
Yes.
What happened?
Oh, the first recording, label copy mistake. You know, the guy.
They got your name wrong?
Yeah. He dropped an R and put a W in his place, and so I became a Wick instead of a Rick.
Did you experience racism in the music industry, and what was it? What was that like?
You know, I didn't know what it was. I thought it was funny. I did my first tour in the South. I decided I wanted to get a drink of water, so I went up to the front where they had the water fountains. And that's when it kind of hit me. I thought, oh, my goodness. There was a white side and a colored side. So there was this white woman who came up to the fountain to bend to drink, and I bent down to drink at the same time. We bumped heads. I said, oh, my goodness, and I started laughing. So I played the game. I said, I know I'm not supposed to say anything to you, but I must say, don't you think it's kind of strange? Yes, you have your side, and I have my side, but the water's coming out of the same pipe. I thought the woman was going to choke. She almost fainted. That's how stupid that really is, you know. What's the reason for it?
we're glad that you're here, and we're glad that you're still singing, and we're proud to have you on the program. It's nice to see you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And now to another star whose music has inspired us. Many of her songs reflect the social activism of a generation. In our conversation with Judy Collins, she opened up about her career, her politics, her personal life. I asked if she's always had a passion for politics.
I was always politically inclined. My dad was very active. Activists spoke out, encouraged us to speak out, and expected us to do our best at all times and to vote.
So what was different about activism in the 60s compared to today, and especially with artists?
I think a lot of people are doing a lot of things today. You know, I once asked Pete, whom I was very close with, Pete Seeger, I said, how do you feel about the world today? This was a couple of years before he died. And he said, I've never been more optimistic. And I said, why is that? And he said, because everywhere in the country and everywhere in the world, people are doing good things, small groups maybe, but they're working on trying to make change. I think he saw something that I find a harder time seeing, but I do have to say that there are lots and lots of good things happening. We don't have the kinds of marches, the kinds of organized events that I was involved with. I wasn't necessarily getting arrested on the steps of the Capitol in Washington,
You were
DC.
testifying at the Chicago 7
Yes.
trial and being admonished by prosecutors and judges.
Shut up and not sing Where Have All the Flowers Gone?
I mean, you were at the forefront of the Yippie movement.
Yes, yes. I
With
was
Abby
there.
Hoffman and Jerry Rubin.
You know who called me to go to that meeting? Phil Oakes. And he called me and he said, you have to go down to wherever it was, this hotel where they're having the press conference for the,
Hotel
for the
Americana.
Yippie. Yes, the Americana for the Yippies. And so I went down and I knew these guys and I always adored David Dellinger. He was so wonderful. And Abby and Rennie Davis and so on. And then, of course, when they were all arrested, then Kunstler was their lawyer, and he said, would you come to Chicago and sing at their trial? Speak, or would do whatever you're going to do. And that's when I opened my mouth and sang, where have all the flowers gone? And it was the guard, or whatever you call him. And the judge said, we don't sing here. Now, I had a total memory loss then, because I always thought that once Judge Hoffman shut me off, I didn't talk anymore, but actually I went on and on and on talking.
You brought up your personal life, and you have written about it, you've talked about it. In fact, you have shared so much of your personal, private
More
life.
than is probably
and,
prudent.
Well, very painful, I would think, to talk about some of the things. You talk about the alcoholism in your family, about bulimia, about the death of your son.
That's the hardest, of course.
What makes an artist want to share those things?
Well, I think it's a question of what makes anybody want to share them.
I lost you on a winter's day in that cold city far away.
If I hadn't written about my son's suicide, I wouldn't have gotten over it. But I knew that if I didn't write about it, I wasn't going to make it. And I also knew that if I didn't talk about it, I wasn't going to make it. And I know people that have like disappeared in this cloud of post-suicidal depression and taboo. So I also saw the taboo. As an activist, I know that there are certain things we don't want to talk about. We don't want to talk about, you know, the fact that we need a higher minimum wage. We don't want to talk about the racism which still exists in this country. But we have to, which is clear because these things are coming out and we have to talk about them. In order to get well, we have to. So that's the answer of why I write about these things.
Thank you for sharing your music. Thank you for sharing your stories with us, and continued success. Keep on going for a long time.
Thank you so
Great to
much,
see you.
John. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
So coming up next,
I never set out to write a hit record, at least not initially.
musician, singer, songwriter, producer Todd Rundgren, the Hello It's Me hitmaker, talks about success on stage and behind the scenes, and the many faces and musical styles of former SNL bandleader G.E. Smith.
Tonight on Al Jazeera America.
Pope Francis celebrates Mass in front of a huge crowd at Kenya's University of Nairobi. We'll have details on day 2 of his African visit.
Antonio Mora brings you a global perspective on the news. Tonight, 10 Eastern.
Crafty chemical companies have deceived us for generations. Once you start using their furniture polishes, you have to keep adding more and more layers just to create a false shine.
Finally, there's a pure and simple furniture polish from a pure and simple people. Introducing Dutch Glow. Based on a century-old woodworker's formula, it easily cleans, polishes, and nourishes all of the woodwork in your home.
The simple ingredients in Dutch Glow Amish wood milk break down years of wax buildup, revealing your furniture's natural glow.
Did you know most water rings are actually a discoloration in the wax buildup? Dutch Glow easily removes those embarrassing heat rings and watermarks.
And in the kitchen, it's like a magician on your cabinets, removing cooking grease, smoke stains, and fingerprints that build up over time.
Look how you can turn an antique flea market find into a gold mine.
Waxes and polishes can leave a sticky residue that attracts dust. So we cleaned half of this table and broke open a down pillow to show how Dutch Glow attracts less dust, so you'll clean less often.
My company cleans thousands of homes and offices every year, and we even trust Amish wood milk on painted wood surfaces because harsh chemical cleaners can etch your painted wood over time.
When they're outside the lines, Dutch Glow comes through every time.
Use Dutch Glow on oak, cherry, pine, maple, teak, hickory, and on any painted wood surface too.
It'll also remove scuff marks from baseboards and cabinet doors. Join the generations of sportsmen that trust Amish wood milk for their wood. Call now and get your bottle of Dutch Glow for just $10. We'll also include a second bottle of Dutch Glow with our special wood floor nozzle. Just pay separate shipping and processing. But if you call right now, we'll even include our jumbo microfiber polishing cloth absolutely free. You get it all, a huge value. Here's how to order.
To order, call 1-800-871-2434 and get 2 bottles of Dutch Glow for just $10 plus shipping and processing. That's 1-800-871-2434 or go to DutchGlow.com right now.
We're here to fully get into the nuances of everything that's going on, not just in this country, but around the world. Getting the news from the people who are affected.
People need to demand reform.
Ali Velshi on Target, coming up next.
Welcome back. I'm John Seigenthaler. Tonight, we continue our look back at some of our conversations with music legends over the past year. One of them was Todd Rundgren. He's known as the rock and roll maverick. His song, Hello, It's Me, put him on the map, but his big success came with producing some of the top musical acts in the country. We began talking about the many musical instruments Rundgren plays.
Technically, I only play the guitar. That's the only instrument that I'm comfortable with playing in front of other people. But most of the other instruments that I've played it's anecdotal. I just learn as much as I need to know to get the sound I want out of it.
You've had so many hits that have weathered the test of time. Did you know when you wrote them, did you know when you played them they were going to be hits?
I never set out to write a hit record, at least not initially. There were points in time when I figured music had become so formulaic I might be able to just, deconstruct whatever a hit is and then write to that.
Hello, it's me.
Hello, It's Me was the first song I ever wrote. The very first song I ever wrote. And it's like haunted me ever since, like an albatross.
But you were also wanted by many, many talented people to help produce their music.
When the Naz broke up, which wasn't long after it formed, maybe about 18 months, and I had left the band, we managed to get 2 records out. And by the time we got to the second record, I'd had enough hands-on experience in the studio to take on the production.
So did you like performing better or producing?
At the time, I didn't even think of myself as a performer.
You didn't?
No, my first record was a result of me doing a lot of work for the Grossman organization, and then continuing to write songs. I was still into music, and I was still into the idea of making a record. I was not into the idea of either putting a band together or going out and fronting as myself, because I didn't think of myself as that kind of performer. Suddenly I found myself in the position of being like the unlikely performer, the reluctant performer. And had to go out and learn how to perform in front of people after I had a hit record.
That didn't come naturally to you?
Not at all. No.
And it was hard?
Actually, I emulated, as you can see in some of these pictures.
Well, I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at this picture, and I'm thinking, This doesn't look like it was hard for you.
Well, I thought of myself as a guitar player, principally.
Right.
You know, and I was comfortable on stage playing guitar, I could jam all night long, you know, no problem with that. But singing, I didn't learn how to be a singer like in my teens when most people do. Most people, you know, if they decide that they want to be in a band or sing or something like that, they step up front, they start developing those skills. I didn't have those when the record came out. I was able to sing in the studio because you can stop the tape and take a breath again and then start up again. But when I went out live, I couldn't sing for 20 minutes straight without losing my voice.
But they also call you the rock and roll maverick.
Well, that's what happened, more or less. I decided I wanted to make a record like nobody had made a record before, or like I had never made a record before, and I was going to try to imprint anything that was in my brain directly onto the recording medium with using the least kind of filtering, least traditional kind of filtering. You know, like the first, it was never allowed to be said, oh, that doesn't sound like a single. We don't care, it's not supposed to be a single, you know? It's supposed to be something nobody's ever heard before.
You're performing, you're writing, you're putting out albums. What's this like for you so long after your initial success?
I'm working harder than ever,
Really?
actually. And a lot of it is because of changes in the music business. That previous structure where you sort of had some sort of guaranteed cash flow from a record label because you would make a multi-album deal and you'd get an advance on each record. Those kinds of deals don't really exist for very many artists anymore. So I had to go back to what artists have done since before there was such a thing as a recording medium, and that's performing live. And the secret is, and it's amazing how many artists don't even understand this, is that the lifeblood of an artist has always been live performance.
You've made a lot of incredible music and made a lot of people happy with it. We're proud to have you on the program. It's great to meet you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Now to our conversation with G.E. Smith. You may know his name, but if you're a fan of SNL, you know his face and his music. He's a master of the guitar. He's also played a big part in rock and roll history, working with Hall & Oates, David Bowie, Roger Waters, and Bob Dylan. I asked when he first realized music was his calling.
When I was 4, I went down in the basement with my mother. She was going to do the laundry. I grew up in Pennsylvania, Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. And there was an old guitar on the wall. It used to belong to my Uncle George that I'm named after. And I said, "What's that?" She said, "It's a guitar." And, "Can I have it?" She went, "Yeah, it's been hanging up there for 10 years. You know, here, take it." That was it. I was obsessed.
You probably would get the award for the most talented guitarist with the most expressive face. Did people ever talk about those poses on Saturday Night Live?
Not everybody liked it, you know, so what are you going to do?
Not everybody liked it?
You can't please everybody, no. It makes me happy when I play. That's the only time people say, "Are you nervous, you know, when you go on stage in front of all these people?" I said, "No, that's the only time I'm not nervous. The rest of the time in my life, I'm nervous. When I'm walking around without the guitar, I'm nervous."
What was it like on that show, working when you started in 1985? I mean, a lot of people have written books about how wild and crazy Saturday Night Live was.
Well, sure. I mean, it's young people, you know, for the most part, working there, younger people, not teenagers, but certainly there were a lot of people in their 20s and 30s, and you get a bunch of people that age together, and they have fun, you know. But there was a lot of hard work.
Hard work.
A lot of hard work, a lot of all-nighters by the writers.
So tell me how you got to know some of these artists that you worked with. For instance, David Bowie.
I met David Bowie at a party, and he was going to do a video, as it turned out, the next day for a song called Fashion, and he needed some people with unusual faces. And he saw me and he said, "Hey, you want to be in my video tomorrow?" And I said, "Sure." And then later in the party, he came back and said, "Why didn't you tell me that you played the guitar? You can be the guitar player in the video." I said, "Okay."
You were with Hall & Oates for how long?
6 years, 79 to 85.
And you toured with them?
All over the world. Yeah.
What was that like?
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I first started, they were sort of in a slump. They had a couple big hits in the mid-'70s, Sarah Smile, Rich Girl. And then they had a couple years where they weren't doing so great. And I got hired. In there, I was getting $200 a week, $100 to play guitar and $100 to drive one of the cars. We were playing bars.
Right.
Bars.
This is after they'd had a couple of
After
hits.
Sarah Smile and Rich Girl, yeah. But then, you know, things go up and down, you know,
Yeah.
showbiz, right? And, but then, lucky for me, I happened to hit there in a period where they produced some great music and things really caught on.
You talk about the ups and downs in the business. What would you tell a young kid who has the same passion for music and guitar that you have?
Go to
about
school,
getting into
become
it?
a doctor or a lawyer. That's what I would
but
tell
that's
them.
not your
That is what I tell them.
That's what you tell them, but you don't really believe
Yeah, I
that,
do.
do
I
you?
really believe that,
Because
yeah.
somebody's going to come along and be the next G.E. Smith, right?
I hope not exactly, but yeah, somebody is going to come along and do well, and that person will not be dissuaded from that path, will they?
How much travel do you do nowadays?
Well, the past 5 years I've been working with Roger Waters, and we did the Wall tour all over the world for 3 years, which was an incredible experience. I thought I had done big tours before. Nothing like that. That was a gigantic production.
Do you have a favorite moment in your career, a favorite time in your career?
Yeah, now, always now, right? That's all I got. That's all we got is now. You know, the memories are nice. I remember certain wonderful moments. There was a time in London with Bob Dylan, you know, where we're on stage doing the little acoustic part of the show, me and Bob, and he's singing Mr. Tambourine Man. And I'm standing there going, I cannot believe that I'm here and there's Beatles on the side of the stage watching us. And I always get that thing. How did, you know, little George Smith from Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, get to this spot? There's lots of great guitar players, but I've been very lucky.
Gee, it's great to see you. It's great to meet you.
John.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Coming up.
When I told my parents when I was 7, when I grow up, I'm going to be an internationally known jazz singer.
Dee Dee Bridgewater, the jazz icon, shares her passion for music in a very candid way.
Sunday, ruthless, brutal, and barbaric.
Hundreds of thousands of people became disenfranchised and took to insurgency.
From their beginnings in the Iraq War.
When the Americans landed in Iraq, they overturned a centuries-old system of power.
To the front lines of Syria.
Those atrocities primed them for when ISIL came knocking and said, "We're your savior."
The untold story of ISIL and the fight against terror.
This is going to be a real combo.
Al Jazeera America presents Enemy of Enemies, Part 2, Sunday, 10 Eastern.
Big news from Beverly Hills. Celebrity plastic surgeon Dr. Andrew Orden has discovered an anti-aging breakthrough called Fill and Freeze, and he's giving away 1 million bottles free.
Wow, I'm young again. I don't feel like an old lady. Lines are gone.
It definitely took 10 years off. If I went to a dermatologist here in the city, I would pay $400 for this.
I've spent nearly 30 years looking for an effective, instant breakthrough to reduce the appearance of wrinkles, and I finally found it with Derm Exclusives Fill and Freeze.
This instant wrinkle-removing miracle sells for $60, but get yours now for only $39.95, and will include a second tube free. Dr. Orden will even include these 3 anti-aging bonus treatments, a $200 value free. But you must call to order. Call 1-800-764-7112. That's 1-800-764-7112. Order now.
Al Jazeera America, getting you closer.
Coming up tonight, we'll have the latest
with more international resources, giving you a global perspective.
Does the government give you refugee status?
Award-winning reporters from across America.
They've marched to the border
and around the world.
Thousands have taken to the streets here in protest.
See what you've been missing.
This is where gangs bury their members.
A deeper understanding of the issues and events that matter.
They're tracking climate change.
Al Jazeera America. Al Jazeera America weeknights at 9:30. America Tonight. Top investigative reporting, uncovering new perspectives.
Everything that's happening here is illegal.
Then at 10, it's reports from around the world.
Let's take a closer look.
Antonio Mora gives you a global view.
This is a human rights crisis.
And at 11, news wrap-up. Clear, concise, complete. Your primetime lineup on Al Jazeera America.
And welcome back. I'm John Seigenthaler. Now to the world of jazz, where Dee Dee Bridgewater is an icon. She won 2 Grammys and a Tony, but her music and leadership has made her a pioneer in the field. I asked her when she first knew she could sing.
I was always able to sing, so I thought it was something that everybody could do.
Lady sings the blues. She tells her side.
I thought everybody could do it. Then it wasn't until I was a teenager that I realized, oh, okay, so my sister really can't sing. You know, my mom, she really can't hold it. She can't. My mama cannot hold a note.
I think a lot of people know you for The Wiz. You've done such great things. Did you ever imagine that you'd have this success when you were growing up?
You know what, John, when I was growing up, because I always sang, I always felt that was what I was going to do. And I told my parents when I was 7, when I grow up, I'm going to be an internationally known jazz singer. I'm going to be well respected by musicians. I told them I was going to live in Paris, France.
Oh, my goodness.
And that I was going to buy them a house and a car.
There is a house in New Orleans.
How'd you get the Wiz gig?
Oh, I auditioned.
And
like everybody else. I went on the cattle calls. I did a total of 4 auditions before I saw the director. I did 4 auditions. You know, and I went in with my little jazz songs and I would sing and yeah. And then I went away. I went on a tour with the Thad Jones Mellows Orchestra, and when I came back, they said, "Oh, we want to see you again." And I was like, oh my goodness, I thought that they'd cast it. And so...
Had you ever been on Broadway before?
No.
So this was pretty big, right?
It was huge.
But you can always stay at my place.
Are you kidding? It was huge. The Wiz changed my life.
Did it?
Yeah, in a lot of ways.
I'm giving you to Saxon Sam.
What does jazz mean to you?
Well, jazz to me, John, means freedom, complete freedom of expression.
You are so resting in my arms.
What it is becoming for me is almost a kind of lifestyle. Because of being in jazz music. Because I've been singing jazz for over 40 years. Yes, rain. Keep the rain. Even though I did some little detours and did some pop stuff and some fusion things, jazz has always been, and traditional jazz has always been my root. So because it is a liberating experience for me, I kind of feel like my whole life kind of revolves within this world of freedom. So I take care of my own music. I hire my own musicians. I have my own little label.
And you do this again in your new album, Dee Dee Feathers.
Well, the new album, Dee Dee's Feathers, is the first time I did not produce myself.
Really?
Yep. And since I started producing myself in '93.
Mm-hmm.
I left the producing reins to Irvin Mayfield, who I share this album with, Dee Dee's Feathers, because he's from New Orleans, because I was working with his orchestra, the New Orleans Jazz Orchestra, because the music that I wanted us to do was all New Orleans music. That's not my world. So I think I'm intelligent enough to know that when I don't know something, I should hand the reins over to someone that I feel is more capable.
Somebody told me you had a lot of fun doing this album.
I think you can tell when you listen to it. We partied.
In New Orleans, yeah.
We partied.
We feel something special when we hear you sing.
You do?
And we do. And we hope we hear it for a long, long time.
Oh, goodness, John, thank you.
Dee Dee, it's great to see you. Thank you very much for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. Namaste.
And thanks again to all the artists who shared their stories. We hope you have a happy Thanksgiving holiday. Thanks for watching. I'm John Seigenthaler. See you back here Monday.